Victoria, welcome.
Thank you.
Aaliyah Dana Horton is nothing short of a pop culture phenom, rising to prominence in the late 90s and early 2000s. She sold millions upon millions of records, starred in Hollywood movies, and was nominated for 5 Grammy Awards, all by the age of 22. However, the success came with a price. From being exploited by family, groomed by her musical mentor, and ultimately losing her life while trying to further her career. This is the tragic tale of Aaliyah.
We could do it all night. We could go all night, all night. Do we heal, do we bleed? I'ma follow your lead, but we could go all night.
In 2001, Aaliyah had been in the music industry for 8 years, and in that time achieved great success, selling around 30 million records worldwide. Her success can be determined by a number of factors, one being her image, another her connections in the industry, but most importantly, her incredible talent. Aaliyah had an innovative, forward-thinking approach to her music and helped shape R&B forever. I think the biggest compliment I can pay towards her music is, if some of her discography was released tomorrow, it wouldn't sound dated or old-fashioned. Her legacy can be seen to this day, with her tracks being sampled a number of times by the biggest names around in the present day, such as Drake and The Weeknd. However, it's not only musically she made an impact, with countless references to the young star in top musicians' lyrics.
Got a bitch that's looking like Aaliyah, she a model. My only regret, could never take Aaliyah home. R.I.P. Aaliyah, R.I.P.
The reason Aaliyah was able to achieve so much and make this level of impact by 22 is because her journey to become an entertainer started at a very young age. Always having an interest in performing, Aaliyah performed at school shows, weddings, and was even in the church choir. She grew up in a family of entertainers and musicians. Her mother, Diane, was a vocalist, and her aunt, Gladys Knight, was dubbed the Empress of Soul Music. This relationship would be vital, as it was through Gladys that Aaliyah was able to get a leg up in the industry and start making connections. Gladys Knight, however, wasn't related to Aaliyah by blood. She was a part of the family as a result of being married to Barry Hankerson, Aaliyah's uncle. He is the founder of Blackground Records, and when Aaliyah was just 12 years old, signed a record deal with the label and began recording her first album. However, what should have been an incredibly exciting and positive period in time for Aaliyah is now forever scarred by the events that would occur. Aaliyah's uncle, Barry, was the man who introduced his niece to R. Kelly, in an attempt to help the creative process for the young star's debut album. R. Kelly wouldn't only help, but play a major role in the creative process, producing and writing the majority of the work on the album. Some critics even claiming it was basically like listening to an R. Kelly album, but with a little girl singing. The album was released in 1994, when Aaliyah was just 14, and as debut albums go, a roaring success, selling over 3 million copies, and the lead single, Back and Forth, climbed to a top 5 position in the charts, showcasing a new rising talent in Aaliyah and adding to R. Kelly's long catalogue of musical successes. R. Kelly's musical ability has never had to be questioned. His morality and character, however, is another matter.
Do you like teenage girls?
When you say teenage, how are we talking?
It's claimed by many insiders that during the production of that album, R. Kelly, 27 at the time, began having sexual relations with the 15-year-old Aaliyah.
A woman who says she was sexually assaulted by R. Kelly when she was a teenager said that she also personally witnessed him sexually assault R&B star Aaliyah, who was underage at the time.
The pair in question always publicly denied the claims, but there was no denying their relationship when court documents revealed that the two were in fact married.
When it came to sex, it was sex to Robert. If a girl was in a room and she had a big booty, she had a big booty. If she was 15 or 20, she had a big booty to him. Period.
From sources within Kelly's team, it's believed that R. Kelly had gotten Aaliyah pregnant. And in order to legally give permission for her to have an abortion, the two had to be married. The only other adults able to give the same permission were Aaliyah's parents. So, R. Kelly had members of his team bribe officials in order to gain a fake state ID, claiming Aaliyah was 18. Not long after the incident, what I can only imagine, frightened and anxious Aaliyah returned to Detroit and made her family aware of what had happened. They quickly had the marriage annulled, and Aaliyah made it clear she didn't want anything to do with R. Kelly, and even asked for all records of the marriage to be expunged in 1997. I think one of the saddest things about all of this was how public the whole situation was, and it was just allowed to happen. Her abuser was just allowed to hide in plain sight. Literally, the album they collaborated on was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, and guess who that is lurking in the background of the album cover? The public and the media can't even plead ignorance.
Kelly also found time to write and produce top 10 hits for his teenage bride, Aaliyah.
Everybody seems to think that y'all are either girlfriend or boyfriend. Let's just get the record straight.
I better go get me a white Jeep.
They were bringing attention to it, but only viewing it as gossip, rather than the sickening, traumatizing, life-altering crime that it was.
What was the situation between you and ex-producer, Robert Kelly?
That was a rough time for me, to be honest and be real, for me to get through a very tumultuous period, but I got through it.
Going through something like that would understandably be near impossible to overcome mentally, and would ruin a lot of people. However, Aaliyah's star only grew in the coming years. She started collaborating with producers such as Timbaland and Missy Elliott, and 2 years later would release her album 1 in a Million, which sold over 8 million copies. Whilst taking some time away from the recording booth, Aaliyah decided to pursue a career in acting, starring in the 2000 action crime thriller Romeo Must Die, which was generally well received by critics, with many saying Aaliyah was a natural. This was all working towards her goal, which she held from her from being a little girl.
I just want to be known as an entertainer, you know what I mean? I want to be looked at as an amazing performer, and it hasn't changed, and so far I'm realizing it and making it happen.
While she was thriving in her career on a personal level, the events of 1994 would of course still affect her. She was able to open herself up to other partners, one of which being in 2000, with American entrepreneur and co-founder of Rockefeller Records, Damon Dash. Publicly, Aaliyah would avoid any questions directed her way about R. Kelly, but it appears it was also the same behind closed doors, with Dash revealing in an interview that she wouldn't even speak to him about her abuser. The most she ever said was, "That is a bad man." After a 5-year break from releasing her own music, Aaliyah released her third album, self-titled, in 2001, which would peak at number 2 on the Billboard charts. After a successful lead single in the track More Than a Woman, Aaliyah and her team flew out to the Bahamas to record a music video to the follow-up single, Rock the Boat. Aaliyah, however, would never return home.
The plane crash that killed a rising star.
Singer-actress Aaliyah is killed in a plane crash.
Dearest, sweet Aaliyah, I have trouble accepting the fact that you're gone, so I won't. It'll be like we went for a while without seeing each other.
On the 25th of August 2001, Aaliyah Dana Horton was pronounced dead. She was one of 9 passengers that all died when the plane plummeted to the ground just minutes after taking off, landing only 200 feet away from the runway itself. Aaliyah's death was of course a tragic loss. And what makes it worse is that this wasn't just some freak accident, but the result of severe professional incompetence and ignorance. It's believed the primary factor for the crash was the aircraft being severely overweight, with a mix of luggage and passengers resulting in the plane being 320 kilograms over its maximum capacity. One charter pilot claims he overheard Aaliyah's team arguing with the pilot before takeoff regarding the aircraft being overweight, but the R&B singer's team insisted they fly and that they had to be in Miami Saturday night. The pilot, relatively inexperienced and a new recruit for the company, gave in to Aaliyah's team and went ahead with the flight. The pilot's name was Luis Morales, and he became a pilot the year prior to his death in 2000. Research after the crash revealed that Morales was in fact not qualified to fly this model of plane. Furthermore, he had fraudulently gained his license by logging hours upon hours of fake flying hours. So just to clarify, the pilot was not authorised to pilot this particular aircraft and had gained his FAA license fraudulently, but that was not all. In the autopsy report following his death, officials found traces of cocaine and alcohol in his system, and the company that hired the pilot received a warning in 1999 for not drug testing their pilots. And believe it or not, it gets worse. Reports have more recently come out that Aaliyah wasn't even conscious when entering the plane and was carried on by her team. Kingsley Russell was 13 at the time of Aaliyah's death and helped out working for his family's taxi firm in the Bahamas. While speaking to a music journalist and author of Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah, claims the artist, known by friends and family to not be a keen flyer, refused to get on the plane and was given a sleeping pill by her team after complaining she had a headache. After passing out in the back of the cab, her team carried her onto the plane, ultimately resulting in her untimely death. Losing a talent like Aaliyah so soon would have always felt like a tragedy, but the fact it was in circumstances so avoidable just makes it feel significantly more devastating. Now, over 20 years on from the incident, we're soon expecting a posthumous album from the late great R&B superstar, with her uncle Barry claiming the album will be released in January 2022. This comes not long after her full catalogue became available on streaming services in 2021, which was received with mixed reactions. Of course, many fans were pleased to be able to hear Aaliyah's catalogue through their preferred streaming service, but the music was put out against Aaliyah's estate's wishes. When the music was published for streaming, Aaliyah's estate put out a statement regarding the issue, saying they've had to endure a 20-year battle behind the scenes to protect Aaliyah's legacy, essentially attempting to prevent her work being profited off by the wrong people. However, Barry Hankerson, who owned the rights to his niece's music, managed to establish a distribution deal with Empire, which allowed for the music to become available on streaming services. Hankerson's latest endeavour is Unstoppable, Aaliyah's posthumous album. Something about this release just doesn't sit quite right with me. With the previous controversy surrounding the release of her music after she's passed, and the timing of this posthumous release so many years on, feels like a few someones are just trying to line their pockets. Which is a shame, as I'm sure the music will be enjoyable and will have some exciting features from the likes of Drake, Snoop Dogg, and a single with The Weeknd which is already out. If I'm totally honest, I'm still not quite sure where I sit on posthumous albums as a whole, but with this one being so many years on, and coming at a time when the powers that be can finally, after 20 plus years, legally release the music, it feels particularly distasteful.
What are the things that make me happy? Yeah. Work. My work makes me happy. I've been doing this all of my life, literally all of my life. And to do it, be successful, and enjoy it. I can't say there are times when I sit back and I look at, my career in a whole and the things that I've achieved, the things I've been through, and I say, wow, I am truly blessed to wake up every morning and do something that I love. There's nothing better than that, You gotta love what you do to want to do it every day. And I've had a lot of success, I've got dual careers now, and sometimes I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Is it real? Is it, sometimes I'm taken aback and I'm just like, dang, I can't believe it.
That was the tragic tale of Aaliyah. She left a huge footprint in music, fashion, and pop culture, and her legacy can still be seen today. Made so impressive by a young age becomes even more admirable, considering the amount of strength it must have taken to overcome the alleged abuse she had to go through. The injustice she had to suffer all the way through to her untimely death has now even continued over 20 years after the fatal plane crash, with her work being released against the wishes of her estate. Whilst I don't support the release, I hope Unstoppable does her legacy justice and she can finally rest in peace. I've been Scott. Thank you for watching.
I'm a four-door passenger to get felt at the job. I'm the late night train, show my face to the camera. Blue face cause I'm cold, listen I'm a ravager. Cleaning up the tape, G, I've been working, not a janitor.